Welcome everyone to yet another student loan health clinic. My name is Natalia Abrams. I'm with Student Debt Crisis Center. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We are going to talk about all the recent updates, go in depth on public service loan forgiveness. Just going to give it a second for folks to join in. If you joined us before, we're going to be doing things a little differently today. We will be using the Q&A function for questions. We want to make sure to try to get to as many questions as we can, but we do have hundreds of folks on this webinar and receive hundreds of questions. So we will try to get to as many as we can, cannot guarantee all of them. And then we will be taking time at the end of this workshop to answer a lot of them live to help all of you out with the questions that we see that so many of you have. So just bear with us for about a minute more to let folks stream in, and we will get started. All right. Wow, we have, it just keeps growing, more than almost 800 people on with us already this evening. Again, you are here at the Student Loan Help Clinic, and we are really grateful that you're here today to learn about your student debt and all the recent updates. I already see folks using the Q&A function. So if you have a question, please ask your questions in the chat. Hopefully through this workshop, we'll be answering a lot of your questions, and we will take time at the end to go over as many questions as we can. And we have folks from both of our teams here at Student Debt Crisis Center and Savvy answering your questions as they come up as much as we can. And with that, I'm going to throw it to Sabrina Calazan, Director of Outreach at Student Debt Crisis Center.
Thanks, Natalia, and thank you all for joining us today. We're really excited to talk through these updates that we're hearing and learning about in regards to student loan debt. And so we're glad that you could join us and take this time to learn a little bit more about what's going on in the space. So today, as Natalia mentioned, we are joined by our partners. But at Student Debt Crisis Center today, I'm joined by Cody, Natalia, and another Sabrina, as well as Lindsay from Savvy. And it's because of our partnership that we're able to bring these workshops to you all. At Student Debt Crisis Center, we're a national nonprofit with 2 million supporters nationwide. And our goal is to center student loan borrowers and in the discussion to end the student debt crisis. Next slide. So about today's clinic, we're going to be discussing the President's Student Debt Cancellation Plan, public service loan forgiveness, which we will be referring to as PSLF, and other recent policy updates. And at the end, we will share an online tool by Savvy to help you understand your repayment options, as well as enroll in public service loan forgiveness. And then just a disclaimer that we are not financial counselors or attorneys, but we are advocates and experts who want to help you. So the important updates that we're going to be covering today focus on COVID-19 relief, student loan repayment, and loan forgiveness programs. So what is the COVID-19 relief for borrowers? So currently payments are suspended and interest is waived for federally held student loans until January 1st, 2023. Suspension counts towards public service loan forgiveness and default rehabilitation. So all of these months that our payments have been paused, each month counts as one credit towards public service loan forgiveness, and borrowers can recertify their income for an IDR program if their income changes during this time. For borrowers in default, tax and Social Security withholdings for federally held student loans in default are currently suspended. Employers are instructed to halt wage garnishments, and borrowers that did have their wages garnished are entitled to receive refunds. And collection activities like calls and letters to defaulted borrowers is also paused. So the first big update is in relation to student loan servicers. Currently, there are 3 federal student loan servicers that are Navient, FedLoan, and Granite State, who have announced that they will no longer be servicing loans. And so right now, approximately 16 million student loan borrowers, or 35% of all student loan borrowers, which is a huge chunk, will be getting a new student loan servicer in the near future. FedLoan, which was the sole company handling public service loan forgiveness, they are having their accounts transferred over to Mohila. So they will continue processing forms until July 2022. So since we are beyond that point, if you have received notification from Mohila, that is why, because FedLoan is no longer servicing loans. IDR adjustment. So this is to address forbearance steering with a one-time account adjustment to count certain long-term forbearances towards IDR and PSLF. And this is something that we'll get into a little bit later on today. To increase progress towards IDR forgiveness by conducting a one-time revision of IDR payments to address past inaccuracies. And there will be immediate debt cancellation for about 40,000 borrowers through PSLF. So thousands are going to receive forgiveness through IDR and millions will receive credit towards IDR forgiveness. And targeted debt cancellation. So the Department of Education announced that they are going to be discharging about $5.8 billion in student debt for 560,000 borrowers who attended Corinthian colleges. Automatic cancellation would also be happening for 323,000 borrowers who have a total and permanent disability, which is made through a data match with the Social Security Administration. And billions of dollars in debt cancellation would also be available for former students who attended colleges like ITT Tech, the Art Institute, and Westwood College. And now I'm going to toss it to my colleague, Natalia Abrams, who's going to go into updates on broad-based debt cancellation.
All right, thank you so much, Sabrina. And I'm sure this is an update everyone has been waiting to hear. I know that we were very pleased when this came out, and also that things are moving full steam ahead. So about 6 weeks ago, President Biden announced that this is for all federal student loan borrowers, or most, federal student loan borrowers. So going forward through this workshop, if we're talking about broad-based debt cancellation, we're going to try our hardest to use the term cancellation. When we talk about public service loan forgiveness, which is for public service workers, we'll try to use the term forgiveness. We understand that both of these programs get confusing. And so this one should be much more straightforward in the sense that this is for federal student loan borrowers that can receive up to $20,000 in debt, $10,000 in debt cancellation if you make under $125,000 a year. For married borrowers, that the combined family income limit of $250,000 a year. The borrowers who received a Pell Grant at the time they borrowed, and it can be, as little as $5 of a Pell Grant. You didn't have to exhaust that. You can receive an additional 10, so up to $20,000 in debt cancellation if you make under $125,000 or $250,000, the same income limit. Just this Monday, the application was launched live. They did a beta test over the weekend. To date, more than, I think it's 12 million people have already signed up for debt cancellation. We are hearing that this is a very simple form. The administration says it takes less than 5 minutes. We are hearing some people say it took them 30 seconds. It's a very, very simple, straightforward government form. This will be open. So for broad-based debt cancellation, you will have until December of 2023, that's December of next year, to apply. However, payments are set to resume on January 1st. So if you want to have your debt canceled, or that money taken to take your account, I lost my words. If you want to be able to take your account down by 10 or 20,000 before payments resume, you will want to apply before November 15th of this year in order to have this applied before payments resume. So let's go over a bit of which loans qualify. all of the direct loans that have been dispersed on or before June 30th. So this does include people that are in college. We are hearing from so many families that not only do their children be able to take advantage, but Parent Plus loans as well. So we know that subsidized, unsubsidized, Parent Plus, Graduate Plus, and direct consolidation loans all count for the direct loan program. The other ones that count are the government held FFEL loans. These are the federal family education loans, and all defaulted loans. Unfortunately, and we know many of you are aware that privately owned FFEL loans that are consolidated today or on or after September 29th are no longer eligible. I will say where this gets confusing or can be challenging for folks. For those folks that have the privately owned FFEL, if you are looking to student public service loan forgiveness, you are going to have to consolidate in order to get your public service loan forgiveness, which is separate from the broad-based debt cancellation. A good way to think about this is if your loans were on pause during the pandemic, then you are eligible for this new broad-based cancellation program. So, and I hope we're sharing this with you all in the chat, but here is, just a quick look at the application page. You want to go to studentaid.gov/debt-relief/application. Make sure that you're going to a .gov website for this cancellation form. You will also receive communication when your form is properly submitted from the Department of Education at a .gov, that's .gov website. So this is simple application process. Like I said, 5 minutes or less, very short. Some people are saying it's kind of too good to be true, but it is in fact simple. So that they will require your name, social security number, date of birth, contact information, and a self-attestation of verifying your income. That's just saying, you are stating what your income is. They allow you to use the 2020 or 2021 years. A confirmation email will be sent to you after applying. Then Ed will verify your eligibility and determine the level of relief. They may reach out to you on that .gov website for more information. You may need to log into FSA or to provide tax documents, but that's only if they reach out to you to ask. You do not need to do any of that for the first level, for the signing up for the form. Once the application is processed, you will be notified. They will notify you and the servicers to apply that cancellation to your overall loan. Only after communications, this is for broad-based debt cancellation, I want to be clear, with communications coming from the Department of Education. And we do know that 8 million borrowers, this is really for a lot of the people that are in school right now. They already have income information and they will be automatically doing this. We are noticing when students are signing up for the debt, on the form for debt cancellation, that they are being notified that they are one of the automatic people. So that is for some people that have provided income through income-driven repayment programs, and then about 6 million that are current students. Those that are in automatic that would not want to receive debt cancellation, which we know right now is a very small group of people, you need to opt out of debt cancellation before November 14th. So it's also important for us all to know that, it's not, for so many people, broad-based debt cancellation of 10 or 20,000 is just simply not enough. And we're very aware of that. So there are other programs on top of cancellation. There is this one-time public service loan forgiveness temporary waiver, which we're going to go more in depth with during Cody's section. You can still apply for public service loan forgiveness on top of broad-based debt cancellation. Additional payments under the waiver for the, to be considered before October 31st of this month. That's the end of this month. And you can visit PSLF.gov or later on, you'll see the Savvy tool that is incredibly helpful for public service loan forgiveness. In addition, as we look to January, even though we are still fighting to extend payments to, as of right now, payments are set to begin January 1st. So there are repayment programs that will tie your monthly payment to your overall to your income, versus your debt amount that can significantly lower payments for many borrowers. We are still awaiting more improvements for the income-driven repayment program. And just a reminder again, and we'll say it a lot throughout this workshop, but right now payments are set to apply to start on December 31st. And if you're looking to get your debt canceled, make sure to fill out the form before November 15th. So now we're going to go over the public service loan forgiveness program, again, separate from broad-based debt cancellation. This temporary one-time waiver that expires at the end of this month, October 31st, and how you can apply. So these are the basics of public service loan forgiveness and of the program as it existed before the waiver. And when my colleague Cody takes over, he will discuss the waiver. So there are some good changes for this October 31st deadline. But some important things to note. This program began in October of 2007. So that means that any public service work done before that, while we thank you so much for your service, unfortunately for this program, that time will not count before October of 2007. Borrowers must make 120 monthly payments before they receive relief. So this is definitely a program that you need to be making, payments while working in your public service job. Payments are cumulative, not consecutive. So you can combine time spent working multiple jobs. You also can take time off and then return back to public service work. So just very, question we often get about consecutive versus cumulative. In addition, all the remaining debt after the 120 payment is forgiven tax-free. And there are no limits for public service loan forgiveness on how much will eventually be forgiven out of your account, unlike broad-based debt cancellation, where there's a maximum of 20,000. So we always have this handy slide to show that one of the best ways to maximize your public service loan forgiveness is to combine an income-driven repayment program with public service loan forgiveness to receive the maximum benefit. Just from questions we've received after these workshops, you do not have to be in an income-driven repayment program. The standard program does count. We just are getting some calls of people consolidating and not signing up for an income-driven repayment program. It's just that the standard payment you're technically supposed to pay off in 10 years. We know hardly anyone is able to do that. So you are going to have far more canceled and pay far less per month if you do an income-driven repayment program along with public service loan forgiveness. Here are the standard rules. This is again before the waiver, that all of the direct loan programs qualified, the standard qualified, the IDR income-driven repayment plans qualified, and the employer section, which that section has not changed for the waiver. All levels of government, state, local, federal government, 501c3 nonprofits, and other critical public service careers, firefighters, teachers, nurses for nonprofit hospitals, those all qualify. There's just an example more of the qualifying organizations. Nonprofits, legal aid services, public education. We've spoken to a lot of teachers that have gotten full debt forgiveness through public service loan forgiveness. And back to standard rules before the waiver of what did not qualify were the older FFEL loans, the federal family education loans, Perkins loans, unless they were consolidated, direct parent plus loans also can be consolidated to be eligible, and loans in default. The older repayment plans as well did not qualify you. So extended graduated repayment, deferment, forbearance, and default. And then employers, we get a lot of questions about government contractors or social workers or different jobs where you work for a nonprofit, but the person who pays you or writes the check is actually a contractor. So it's really about who pays you and whether or not that is a qualifying employer. Labor unions, 501c4s, and religious instruction. So we saw that there were a lot of problems with public service loan forgiveness, and we actually asked so many of our supporters, and I want to thank you for voicing your opinion via comment last year, because that really helped us get to this temporary waiver. The biggest problems we saw were with loan type, repayment plan, and then small technicalities. So many borrowers were unaware that their FFEL loan or Perkins loan did not qualify. Also, when many of you called to ask if it did, you were not told you could consolidate years ago to qualify for public service loan forgiveness. Similar with repayment programs, many borrowers did not know that their extended or extended graduated did not qualify. And then there was also just so many unnecessary, hurdles of just not properly dotting your I's or crossing your T's that made the application not be accepted. For all these reasons, the government came out with this temporary waiver that expires on October 31st of this month. And with that, I will kick it to Cody.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Natalia. And, I just have to reiterate, this is a lot of information. There have been a lot of updates. This workshop initially was intended to really get the word out about this update, the public service loan forgiveness waiver, but we couldn't ignore the biggest news of the week, which was the debt cancellation plan that the president announced. So I just want to be clear with you all again that this PSLF waiver is on top of and separate from the president's debt cancellation plan. So what is the waiver? So there was public service loan forgiveness that has always existed and will exist after October 31st. But because of red tape that prevented tons of borrowers from accessing the program, the Department of Education announced that they would do a limited waiver of the rules that allows all payments by a federal student loan borrower to count towards public service loan forgiveness, regardless of the loan program or the repayment plan that they were enrolled in, which is huge news. And I'm going to explain kind of the hiccups in just a moment. These folks that qualify for PSLF waiver could be people who have already been denied PSLF. So the Department of Education will be reviewing previously denied PSLF applications for errors, and it will also give borrowers the ability to have their PSLF determinations reconsidered. So this part's really important because this means that not only are there more people than ever who are eligible for PSLF, people who have already applied could also reapply and finally get the relief that they need. On top of this, the Department of Education automatically provides credit towards PSLF for military members and other federal employees in which the government already has employment information. So to sum all this up, this waiver is intended to make it so that more people have more of their 120 qualifying payments qualified and counted for than ever before. Next slide, please. So here are the temporary rules. Periods of repayment on a federal family education loan can now count. Periods of repayment on a Perkins loan can now count. Previously, we showed you this graph and we said that direct loans qualified for PSLF. This waiver expands those rules temporarily. Now, under a repayment plan, as Natalia mentioned, we would typically tell a borrower that they needed to be enrolled in an income-driven repayment plan, or perhaps the standard repayment plan, which doesn't really make sense as far as getting actual relief. But those two programs qualified. Under the new waiver, any federal student loan repayment option qualifies. So I've heard over the years from many people who were in an extended repayment plan or a graduated repayment plan, all of that would now count. Repayment on loans before a consolidation now counts. So for a long time, borrowers would consolidate to become eligible for a program like PSLF, only to find out that their repayment clock, the 120 payments, restarted. That's no longer the case under these temporary expanded rules. And now folks who had slightly late and slightly lower or higher payments made to their account will have those payments counted. So consider a borrower who was a few days late on their loans, on their loan payment, they wouldn't have that payment qualify. Now those payments would qualify. Now, just the last title there, the last section there, the employer, the rules around the employer haven't changed much. You still need to work for a government or a nonprofit. What has changed, though, is that a borrower used to have to be employed at a qualifying employer at the time of their application, which meant a teacher who worked for 20 years and just retired couldn't get the relief that they should. That's no longer the case. You do not have to be working right now for a qualifying employer to qualify for this relief. So all of these expanded rules are really powerful. They're going to be in place, at least for now, until the end of this month, the end of October 31st. So it is really critical that you apply for PSLF right now to be able to have payments counted that typically wouldn't count. And as a reminder, that doesn't mean the program ends after October 31st. It just means you can get more payments counted for PSLF during this time. So with this flurry, this rush to get applied, we definitely are hearing from borrowers who have a ton of questions. So these next few slides are hopefully some of the more common FAQs we receive that I hope can check off for you all some simple action items. So what do you do if you don't know what kind of loan you have? You can find your loan type at studentaid.gov, and you can visit the My Aid page. You will have an entire breakdown of every federal student loan that you have had and currently have, along with what type of loan they are, and all the information really you need to learn more about your situation. As a reminder, direct loans begin with the word direct. Federal family education loans will often have FFEL or FFELP attached to them. And obviously Perkins loans will be listed as Perkins loans. What if you're a borrower that has at least one federal loan and at least one of those federal loans is not a direct loan? So you will need to submit a consolidation application and a PSLF application before the October 31st deadline. And that is because a borrower needs to have a direct loan to qualify for PSLF. So the waiver allows you to consolidate now, but still count those previous payments. That's good news. One of the frustrating things that is happening right now, and we will be working diligently to fix this, is that a borrower who needs to consolidate right now to qualify for PSLF just weeks ago could have done so without any consequences. Due to an update with the president's debt cancellation plan, some borrowers who consolidate right now may not be eligible for the president's cancellation plan. So consolidating for PSLF, it's really important for those who do not qualify for PSLF and want to be able to take advantage of the waiver. But please go to studentaid.gov and learn about what consolidation will mean for you so you can make the most informed decision. You can, as I said, apply for the consolidation and the PSLF form at the same time so you can get this ball going right now. the Department of Education encourages you to consolidate and then use their help tool to certify your employment. You can check your employer's eligibility at the help tool, which is studentaid.gov/PSLF. Next slide here. So what if you already have a direct loan and you've already certified some of your employment? This is somebody who already has some qualifying payments counted or is kind of already in the system as a PSLF borrower. If you've already applied for PSLF and had some employment certified, then the Department of Education is going to award your additional payments without any further action. So again, remember, there is some automatic review process here where the department will readjust certain PSLF payment counts if you're already kind of in the system and need an adjustment. FSA, they may contact you to certify additional employment. So as Natalia mentioned, when it came to cancellation for forgiveness, you're going to want to keep an eye out for these emails from the Department of Education, work with your loan servicer and with anyone that's got a .gov email address, but you do not need to be responding to folks who are outside of your servicer and the Department of Education. These will be your main points of contacts. And that last note there, you don't need to do anything else until you receive an updated payment count. So if you are a borrower with direct loans and some employment certified, you are well on track. You don't need to consolidate at this point. You just need to continue to track your employment with the Department of Education. What if you have direct loans and you have not applied yet? Submit a PSLF form so that the Department of Education can review your loans under the new rules and determine whether current or past employers qualify. So there are a lot of folks who are contacting me. They're saying, hey, I've got direct loans. I'm in the right repayment, or excuse me, I have the right type of employer. I've never applied. Do I need to do anything right now? And the answer is, yeah, you might as well apply ahead of October 31st so that the Department of Education can review your account and make sure you're getting all the payments that could qualify counted. You can submit this form through the PSLF help tool. Again, that's studentaid.gov/PSLF. Because the Department of Education expects to see an influx of applications due to all of these announcements, there are some delays. I'm already responding to folks in the Q&A box that are telling me it's taking months. We totally hear you. That is unfortunately the character of the process right now, but that shouldn't deter you from applying ahead of the October 31st deadline. You just need to get your application submitted before that deadline. So if you can get it in before the end of October 31st, even if it takes months to process, you've done your part. And this is a really important one. What if you've already tried to certify your employment, but you've been denied? Well, the department, if they've previously denied your employment, they're asking borrowers to submit a new form to see if you can now receive credit towards forgiveness. So keep in mind, the whole point of this process, this waiver, is meant to fix cracks in the system that blocked borrowers in the past. So if you've already tried to certify and were denied, now is your chance to really try again and see what happens. You can use the PSLF help tool online to find which employers the department already deems eligible. There is some database with some employers, so that could help. And as I mentioned, the new waiver rules, they don't necessarily affect the rules guiding qualifying employers. You still need to work for a government organization, a 501c3 nonprofit, or another nonprofit that provides designated public service. So I'm going to just underline this because this consolidation piece is very important for borrowers. Not every borrower has to consolidate right now. I need that to be very clear. There are some borrowers who need to consolidate to be eligible for public service loan forgiveness only. These would be Parent Plus loans and federal family education loans. Under the PSLF waiver, you must consolidate before the deadline of October 31st. I've been saying over and over again that FFEL loans will get credit for payments made prior to the consolidation. So if you've been paying back a FFEL loan for 10 years and you consolidate to qualify right now, you under the waiver rules, you will get 10 years worth of qualifying credits. Unfortunately, for Parent Plus loans, you will still start over at 0. That is the process under the waiver. So as a reminder, why would you maybe need to consolidate? You may need to consolidate to become eligible for federal programs like income-driven repayment or public service loan forgiveness. Borrowers often consolidate to get out of default. When you consolidate your loans, you're creating a brand new loan. So if you're behind on your previous loans, consolidation can help. You could consolidate to include retroactively a Parent Plus loan and their progress made towards that Parent Plus loan with other loans. You can also combine undergrad and graduate loans so that they're all forgiven faster. And you can retroactively claim credits for forgiveness under PSLF under the limited waiver. One of the things that I haven't mentioned yet is if you consolidate multiple loans to become eligible for PSLF under the waiver rules, the Department of Education is going to use the date that your oldest loan was awarded. So we're already hearing from borrowers that have some loans that are 10 years into repayment, and maybe they just recently went back to school. If they consolidate to become eligible for PSLF right now, it's like they've been paying them all off for 10 years. That's how many credits they could be qualifying for. So again, if you should only consolidate if you're one of these borrowers that needs to consolidate to qualify or to gain any of these benefits. But there are many, many borrowers who are already on track for public service loan forgiveness because they have a direct loan and they're already ready to go. So I just have to say that because I get a lot of questions. In fact, I think the #1 upvoted question right now in our Q&A box was, do I need to consolidate my loans? Well, maybe, but for many borrowers, you likely do not have to. And what about all of this in the context of the pandemic? Well, as a reminder, public service loan forgiveness credits also include the time that folks were in administrative forbearance because of the pandemic. That is the name of the pandemic-related pause that the federal government put on most federal loans. So payments are on pause, which started in March 2020 and ends at the end of this year. So you could see how a borrower can get several dozen credits towards PSLF just during this payment pause, even if they never made $1 worth of payments. If you're on the PSLF track, again, this could count for 1 out of 5 of your 120 payments for free. Now, I'm going to pass it over to Lindsay here in a minute. Lindsay is our great friend and partner at Savvy. They have a tool that will help you take care of all of these applications and track all of your qualifying employment information, paperwork. I mentioned earlier how you would want to talk to the Department of Ed or your servicer. Savvy is that third entity that I would say you can work with these folks, and their tool is helpful and it's free for anyone who's an SDCC supporter. So there's a small list of trusted voices. Lindsay at Savvy is certainly one of them. Let's go to the next slide here and we'll get over to their section here in a second. My last slide for me is issues or complaints. I have already told a handful of folks on this list to contact the Student Loan Ombudsman's office. If you have a dispute that is going nowhere with your student loan company, an egregious error with your account, the federal government has an office whose entire job is to help mitigate this and to help resolve these problems. And that is the Student Loan Ombudsman's office, and the current Student Loan Ombudsman is Bonnie Luttrell. So you can email FSA Ombudsman office@ed.gov, and you can submit documentation information for them to contact your servicer and create a resolution for your problems. We encourage you, if you really hit a wall, you really feel something's wrong, to contact the Ombudsman's office. As you've probably heard several times tonight, things are moving a little slowly, so be patient, but their office can get things fixed. Okay, now it's time for Savvy. I'm going to pass it over to Lindsay Clark, who is the Director of Partnership at Savvy and is talking to, I think, her third webinar of borrowers today. So this is someone who really knows what they're talking about. Lindsay, take it away from here.
Great. Thanks so much, Cody. And it's great to be with so many of you tonight and see that so many of you are tuning in. I know it is somewhat of a stressful time, especially because of this PSLF limited waiver deadline. And so, if you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed, I know this is a lot to consume in one sitting and sort of not sure what you still need to do or how to track your progress, where to get started. That's exactly why we're here. So I'm going to briefly just talk about who we are here at Savvy, why we do what we do in our mission. I think it's important because there, are a lot of less than reputable actors in this space and scams and things like that. And so it's important to know who you're trusting and why we're trusted by so many borrowers across the country. And then I'm going to explain exactly how Savvy can help with sort of each step along the way in this process. It was designed and built by student loan borrowers who recognized all the pain points along the way. And so we've designed a tool that is geared towards improving that experience from start to finish. And so I'm going to take you through sort of each of the steps in creating that account, how to utilize and take advantage of the services and features involved. And just to make this clear from the start, this tool is 100% free of charge and will remain so in perpetuity forever. Any student loan, or I should say any student debt crisis center attendee here today will never be charged for using this tool. It is provided from a grant, and we're very, very fortunate to be able to provide these services to this community, again, free of charge. So with that being said, on this next slide, I just want to briefly introduce, who we are. Savvy is a social impact technology startup based in Washington, D.C. We were founded by policy experts and advocates who have been fighting on behalf of the borrower for almost a decade and had worked closely with the founding directors of Student Debt Crisis Center themselves, Cody and Natalia, for many years. And in 2017, this was the first year that borrowers could start applying for public service loan forgiveness. And over 100,000 borrowers applied and 99% were rejected. And hopefully, today you've sort of seen why that took place. All of these technicalities and strict eligibility requirements that prevented borrowers from achieving success. And so our founders saw that and decided to do something about it. So they developed Savvy as a technology platform and a service to help borrowers like you and me not only better understand our student loan debt, but to navigate from start to finish successfully around these programs that have been notoriously difficult for borrowers to sort of cross that finish line on their own. And we sort of help to make things easier along the way, trying to minimize your monthly payment and ultimately maximize that forgiveness. We're a registered public benefit corporation, which means it exists in our mission and charter to serve the public benefit. And that's exactly why we do things like this here tonight with such amazing partners as Student Debt Crisis Center and Young Invincibles, because our mission really is to better educate and inform borrowers and ultimately empower all of us as consumers. So with that being said, let's dive right in. So this no-cost student loan aid tool basically is going to ask you some simple questions, and I'm going to sort of walk you through those screens here in a second. But through collecting that information, we are able to show you a personalized repayment and forgiveness eligibility and plan. So this is basically down to the cent as to what that potential forgiveness would look like, how long until that forgiveness takes place, and in the meantime, how to sort of keep that monthly payment as low as possible through things like income-driven repayment plans. But we not only just show you your options, right? We take it a step further because we realize that knowing what's best is very, very different from then actually achieving that outcome. And so in order to help borrowers do that, we actually take on all of the administrative burden for you. And so we basically manage and monitor the application process across public service loan forgiveness, income-driven repayment, teacher loan forgiveness, et cetera. So we pre-fill and digitize these applications. We are able to have you electronically sign through our DocuSign integration. We then manage and send those out to your various employers, both current and previous, and then collect those signatures and submit them to Mohila or the various entities on your behalf. We have a 99% acceptance rate on our applications that get submitted because we have put into place systems that prevent any human error and make it so that this can be done quickly, accurately, and efficiently. And you're able to sort of track your progress along the way and have transparency and visibility into that through the Savvy tool. Last but not least, and I think this is oftentimes the most compelling aspect for many borrowers, you are able to access more personalized support and assistance from our team of internal student loan experts. So this is our support team that you are able to initiate conversations with. If it's just to sort of get some peace of mind or quick questions along the way. We know that for borrowers pursuing public service in particular, there are a lot of touch points. And so that's exactly why we have that feature in the tool. So to get started, you can create your free account by going to help.withstudentloans.buysavvy.com. And I know my colleagues will put that in the chat for you all. And basically, it's pretty simple. So when you log into that account or when you begin that process, the first thing you're going to see is a screen similar to this. This is our homepage, okay? And you can either sign up directly or you can sort of answer those questions right there to begin the process. But on this next slide, I'm going to show you some of the features involved. So primarily the dashboard. So you can kind of think of this almost like mission control for everything savvy. This is where you're going to ultimately be able to do a lot of different things around this process, manage and monitor all those different applications, et cetera. And when you're ready to begin, you can click Get Started or Continue, and it'll bring you into the Savvy tool on this next slide. Great. And so, as I mentioned earlier, the process is fairly simple. You can kind of think about it almost like a TurboTax for your student loans. So we're going to ask you some basic questions around your income, your family size, your tax filing status, and most importantly for PSLF and other forgiveness programs, your employment history. And all of this, again, helps us to be able to identify for you what those optimal repayment and forgiveness plans might be. Now, on this employment section, you are able to add in not only your current employment, but any previous employment you might have had. And I highly encourage you to do so because it helps us to refine our estimate around your eligibility. We have a database of all of the PSLF eligible employers and teacher loan forgiveness employers in the country. So when you start typing that employer in, you'll see it drop down on that menu. You'll be able to select and go from there. The last step in this process is syncing your student loans. So there are a couple data points, things like your loan balance, your interest rate, your disbursement date, and more importantly for many of you, your loan type that are going to determine your eligibility for these programs. So we provide a very easy loan sync for you to be able to do that. We use a technology called Plaid, which is sort of a best-in-class syncing technology. It's used across most financial technology applications these days. If you have a Venmo account, you've used Plaid before. And what it allows you to do is to select your servicer, so let's say Navient in this case, enter in your Navient username and password credentials, and it's going to sync over a read-only snapshot of those data points. So it's not giving us access or anything like that, just a snapshot. And this is where we will be able to do things like, for example, identify your loan type. And from there, if you have a loan type that, for example, would require consolidation, like a Parent Plus loan or a FFEL loan, we will actually flag that for you there. So if you're still unsure whether or not you need to consolidate, by going through this process and syncing those loans, we will be able to identify that for you and assist you with that process. And then once you've synced those loans, you'll reach this final step here on this next page. And this is where what we call the plan options page, where we show you what those options are. So you'll be able to see exactly what your eligibility looks like and what that payment could look like when things resume in January. So you'd see that new monthly payment amount, what the total payment over time might be, how long until you'd be eligible for forgiveness, literally the year and month away, and the exact amount you'd eventually have forgiven. You can expand below for more details about these programs. We might show you a couple of different options with different repayment plans. So you can review all of that there, at your convenience. And then if you are ready to proceed and would like to enlist our help with the sort of administrative and application side of this, you can click continue. And literally with the click of a button, you will be able to turn any employment that you had added into your Savvy account earlier in the process into automatic employment certification forms. So literally by clicking those Start ECF, that ECF stands for Employment Certification Form, for as many previous employers as you might need, 10 plus, doesn't matter. You click Start, it pre-fills and digitizes this form. It gets sent to you for quick signature digitally, and then we send it out to that employer to sign off. So we manage that entire process. And once the employer signs, it gets submitted to Mohila via our digital fax integration within 60 seconds. Okay. And again, we can guarantee that based on how we set this process up, it is going to be an accurate and accepted application. And on the right-hand side here, this is just an example of an income-driven repayment plan pre-filled application. So, not only can you sort of process your PSLF related applications, but when it comes time to, thinking about your repayment plans in January, process those as well. And last but not least, I should say before we do that, so once you start that process, literally you can do it in one sitting, and by clicking that button, Start ECF. From there, we manage and monitor those applications to ensure they achieve the desired outcome. I'm sure many of you on the call here tonight who have had experience with this program, whether recently or in the past, can attest to the fact that there is very little visibility or transparency into what's going on. And I know more recently, many of you have been submitting forms to Mohila and not hearing anything for a month or more. And so this is where we really try to solve for that. So on the right-hand side here, you'll see someone who has 3 different PSLF employment certifications in progress and an income-driven repayment plan application as well. And then zoomed in on that sort of dashboard tracking on the left-hand side here is going to show them exactly where they are in that process, what's been submitted on their behalf, what they might still need to do. And it's going to move them along through that process and trigger certain notifications when things are taking too long. So this is how we help hold servicers accountable. So for example, if it's been over 10 weeks since you've heard from your servicer, you'll get a notification and we'll be able to help you follow up and make sure everything is going according to plan. This monitoring system is so critical to borrowers ultimately achieving that best outcome possible. Because as we all know, submitting the forms is one thing, but crossing the finish line is another. And oftentimes it's a very anxiety-inducing experience. Last but not least, our Savvy support team. So you can initiate a conversation with our support student loan experts right from your Savvy account by clicking Contact Support. You'll see sort of a message window pop up and you can ask your question there. In the meantime, we have an interactive help center with tons of great content and resources made available thanks to Student Debt Crisis Center and our team that you can utilize at your convenience. All right, so I think that sums it up. I will turn it back over to Cody because I know we've got a lot of questions that are brewing and hope to be able to answer them.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. Yes, we have opened up the Q&A box. There are a ton of questions I flagged as things that our team wants to talk about live for the entire audience here. I'm going to just go in order from what I see here in our box. The first one being from Nubia, and the question is, do I need to consolidate my loans? Will this affect me in the long run with regard to public service loan forgiveness?
Hey, Cody, I'm happy to take this one. So, sorry, go ahead, Natalia.
Oh, well, I was just going to say, going back on what Cody said, maybe, it depends on what type of loan you have. If you have a direct loan, there is no need to consolidate to qualify for public service loan forgiveness. But if you have an older FFEL loan or FFELP loan type, then you have to consolidate in order to get the correct credit count, and that will help you in the long run.
Yep, couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah, and I said it for a moment, but Natalia, maybe you can clarify what this new update when it comes to the president's debt cancellation plan is
right.
Regard to consolidation, because I know it's thrown a wrench here a bit.
So for folks with these older FFELP loan types, if you consolidated before September 29th, then you can apply for both cancellation and public service loan forgiveness. But if you're just learning about this today, either way right now, the commercially held FFELP loans, those are the loans that were not put on pause during this payment pause extension, will not qualify for cancellation at this point. So if you're looking to do public service loan forgiveness and you work in a public service job, your best bet to get your debt canceled either, in a few months because you've reached the 10 years of credits, or in a few years because you're close to those 10 years, that is going to be your best bet. I will say we are still fighting very hard for a fix. We've heard from thousands of you. I think almost 30,000 of you signed a petition. We are very well aware of this FFEL issue for the debt cancellation. But for public service loan forgiveness, it's just a must. There's no way that you can get these credit counts accurate without consolidating, and you have to be part of the direct loan program for your loans to count for public service loan forgiveness. And remember, there is no cap to how much will be wiped out of your loan balance. All of it can be wiped out or will be wiped out after 10 years. So we understand how frustrating this is, but for those, I would say those of you looking to do public service loan forgiveness are much better off because at least you have that option for that cancellation down the road.
Another question here. This is from Mary, and Mary says, what if I am interested in PSLF, but I can't afford even the payments under the affordable income driven repayment plan option?
Yeah, well, I would say this, part of President Biden's sort of announcement at the end of August around sort of this larger debt relief plan included plans to introduce a new income-driven repayment plan. So generally right now, the income-driven repayment plans available cap that monthly payment between 10 to 20% of your adjusted gross income. And this new plan that they're going to introduce would cap that monthly payment at 5%, which means it would significantly lower monthly payments for borrowers enrolled across the board. It's also going to prevent borrowers from sort of having to deal with the interest capitalization. So regardless of how little you might be paying on your loans each month, your loan balance will never increase as a result of that interest. And that's not retroactive, but going forward. So I think that this new plan, which has not been made officially live yet, we hope to hear more details in the coming months as to when that will be available to enroll. But that is definitely something that I would hopefully, if it's available before payments resume in January, take a look at and consider enrolling in to help reduce that monthly payment. Cody, I'm not sure if there's anything else you wanted to add there.
No, that's exactly what I was thinking. The only other thing I would say is I think that this other part of the president's announcement didn't get as much attention, obviously, and so stay tuned. There's still more work being done to fix many of these systems. All right, another question from Mark. They're asking, are the months from March 2020 through December 2023 counting towards the 120 months needed for public service loan forgiveness? So if your payments were put on pause during the pandemic, would that count for your 120 monthly payments?
So yes, it would, so long as during that time you were working for a qualifying public service employer 30 hours or more a week. That's sort of the only stipulation there. And if that's the case, then absolutely yes. And to get those counted and credited to you, you would need to submit a PSLF employment certification form for that period of time in order to sort of receive those credits officially. But yes, this is the great sort of opportunity around this payment pause for borrowers. That's 34 credits between March of 2020 and December 31 of this year that you can basically have gotten for free. So 34 out of 120 is a heck of a lot closer than before.
Yeah, and I think a somewhat related question, Vicky was asking, if I've made less than 120 payments, should I still apply for PSLF now, or do I wait until after the 120 payments?
Apply now. So this is a common misconception. A lot of borrowers have been confused about this. So with this waiver deadline, October 31st, that does not mean that you need to have reached the 120 before then, okay, or by then. In fact, the majority of borrowers won't, okay? What it means is that in order to have your situation reviewed under this expanded eligibility, and it's even more so in your interest, if you are somewhere along the way towards that 120, you need to take action by submitting those PSLF forms before that date. So absolutely, you should be submitting before that date. And in fact, if you wait to submit until afterwards, you might not maximize your benefit under this waiver and receive credits that you very well could have and gotten closer to that 120. So you absolutely want to submit before October 31st.
What about someone who has worked for multiple qualifying employers, right? We're talking about 10 years of work in public service. So not everyone's spent 10 years at the same job. What do these borrowers do to qualify?
So they need to submit a PSLF employment certification form for each of those employers. So any current or previous employment they might have had. So if you had 8 different employers over that period of time, that means 8 different PSLF employment certification forms that need to be signed off on. This is why this administrative burden can be quite big, especially if you've got to get 8 forms signed by 8 previous employers and track down, the signatures somehow. So that's why I would say the Savvy tool is designed to be able to facilitate that process, especially for those who have, several previous employers, to be able to do that right from the comfort of their home, really, but ensure that they're able to get those forms signed and submitted before the deadline.
I'm going to go and jump in and answer a question from Heidi that I saw from a ton of borrowers. I typed in some responses to some, and I flagged a few to talk about live. But Heidi is one of these borrowers who's telling us that they have met all the requirements. They've consolidated, they got the right loan, and then they get paperwork from their student loan servicer saying that they have very few or maybe no qualifying payments. And Heidi, like many borrowers, also noted that they just recently got a new student loan servicing company. I want to jump in, and Lindsay, please jump in with any additional experience you have. But I have been hearing a lot from borrowers who have had their student loans transferred to Mohila, who is now leading the PSLF application process, and are being told they have 0 or 4 or 5 qualifying payments when they feel very strongly that they should qualify for dozens more. This, in my experience so far, has been widely an issue when it comes to the servicer's communication of payment counts. What are you seeing out there, Lindsay, with borrowers who feel like they're being told that far fewer payments are counting towards PSLF than they anticipate?
Yeah, so I would say this, and the process is somewhat changing on a consistent basis as far as the communications borrowers are receiving from Mohila around this. I would say, the latest that I have heard, and this has been happening for quite a while, is that sort of the first review of so let's say you've never submitted these forms before, right? And you submit them to Mohila, and sort of the first level or wave of review of those is basically to confirm the eligibility of your employment periods. Okay, so it is nothing, they're not even looking at your credit, they're not even looking at your payment history yet, because that would require your loans to have moved to Mohila, right? So this first wave of review that happens when you submit those forms, if your loans are at a different servicer than Mohila, right, is just simply confirming the eligibility of the employment periods for which you are trying to certify. And so they communicate that back to the borrower. And generally at some point when those loans end up moving to Mohila is when that review process begins to now go back and say, okay, let us review the repayment history, right? To confirm during those periods of eligible employment, which of those months are able to count as a qualifying payment credit because a payment was made. Now it's during that part of the process where we found the communication from Mohila can be very misleading. And so when borrowers initially get that letter saying their employment's eligible, but they have 0 credits, that is, I would say, don't take that with too much credence just yet. Again, there should be some language on that form that says we will continue to update your application and or your status as we review your applications. This is basically just, and I wish they would use different language, but part of that initial review. And so many people felt the same way. They were shocked and thought, wait, I should have 100 credits and it's telling me I have 0. So especially if you consolidated, that was sort of one of the situations in which this was happening quite frequently. So I would say not to totally ignore it, but don't pay too much mind to that. And I would say that in the coming weeks, you should see and receive further communication once they've finished that review of your complete employment and payment history, and that will update on your Mohila account, and they will communicate that to you. So that's generally what we've been seeing across the board. But I've, had many borrowers, freak out when they get that first letter telling them, they basically have 0 credits. So that's what we've been seeing on this end. But, it's great for you all to attend these webinars, but also, keep Student Debt Crisis Center team informed. If you don't happen to receive that, or you're still having issues, we like to, collect those concerns and elevate those as we need to. So we want to sort of help monitor and track how the servicers are managing this program. So continue to be vocal to SDCC about these things. And they're truly the best advocates you could ever hope for around this stuff. So, but hopefully that was helpful.
That has been incredibly helpful. And we're hearing, I think it just helps to know you're not alone if you're experiencing this. We're hearing this from a lot of folks, and we will continue to advocate. We collect these responses that we get from folks and try to run them up ladders and get information. So thank you all for sharing that experience with us. I have another question that came up several times, but borrowers want to know if they were in deferment or forbearance, can they make that time count towards public service loan forgiveness?
Yeah, this is a great question. So as of right now, okay, in the sort of under at least the limited waiver period in which they're processing these, I would say the short answer is no. You generally are only able to receive qualifying PSLF payment credits when a payment is made, the exception being this payment pause period, right, where you're able to receive credits without having to have made a payment because the payments were paused. But otherwise, under the original rules of the program, you needed to have made a payment for that month to count and qualify. However, I would say back in the spring, the Department of Education announced that they were planning to introduce some sort of retroactive one-time sort of reforms around this program that would expand the eligible qualifications to include certain months in which you might have been on a deferment or forbearance. They recognized that forbearance steering by servicers was a huge issue, and many borrowers working in public service and trying to pursue the program were on forbearance for extended periods of time because they weren't able to afford their payments. And so they sort of announced that they were going to plan on rolling this out at some point this fall, maybe early next year, in which they would be giving credit for periods of prolonged forbearance or deferment. So that's as far as we know right now. SDCC team, feel free to add in if there's anything else, or there's any new information there. But when that becomes sort of more official, or we learn more about how that will be implemented, we'll certainly, be, communicating with the community of borrowers around SDCC to let them know. So I would say no right now, but it's coming. So stay tuned.
Sheena asked a great question. I think a lot of borrowers need to know about this, but Sheena wants to know, what is the best option to manage your payments after the waiver expires?
Go ahead, Natalia.
Yeah,
I was just gonna say, this is where the Savvy tool is so amazing, and just want to say we, hear you and know that the White House and Department of Education is talking about these scam companies, these companies that will charge you. We've done reports on this, upwards of like $600 to manage your student loan debt. That's ridiculous. While you can do this all free of charge, or I'm sorry, both are free of charge. While you can do this all at studentaid.gov, we know that so many of you struggle to really understand that. And that's where the Savvy tool has really simplified being able to manage, your credits for public service loan forgiveness. We've seen them firsthand fight for credits for borrowers and ensure those credit counts are accurate. And then it's a really great tool also for income-driven repayment programs. If we do in fact enter repayment again January 1st. And remember, this is free of charge to anyone joining this workshop, and feel free to share with family and friends as well.
Yeah, I mean, the main message there is there's still going to be borrowers who need to enroll in programs of all kinds after not only the waiver expires, but after student debt is canceled and while we continue to fight for more relief. So, getting on track with these repayment programs that are available to you is absolutely essential. Okay, I know we're running past time, so I think we've got time for just a few more questions. This is another question about consolidation for PSLF, so I'm going to include it because I think there's a ton of questions about this. But this person, Rebecca, says, I have 2 direct loans. Do I need to consolidate these to qualify for public service loan forgiveness?
So oh, go ahead, Natalia. You go.
I was going to say, yeah, no, that the direct loan program qualifies for public service loan forgiveness. There is no need to do so. Some people do like to consolidate so they have, their loan streamlined into one loan. I would say some people like to save consolidation in case they run into trouble down the road. So the only folks that have to consolidate are those that have the older loan types, which were issued before 2010, and that's the FFELP loan types, or FFEL.
Another question that came up several times, what if you haven't verified your employment at all or recently? Can you still apply? Like, can you retroactively go back and make sure that previous employment qualifies?
Yes, that's the great thing. If you are just learning about public service loan forgiveness today, this is the first time you've ever heard about it, or you're talking to a colleague, you can go back retroactively till 2007. So you can only go as far back as to when the program began, which was October of 2007, but all time counts. And remember, it does not need to be consecutive. People have taken time off. And then the other thing right now, which is so important, if you are retired, you also absolutely need to sign up before the October 31st deadline, because old PSLF, which we'll revert back to, did not allow people that had retired. You have to be working in your public service job. So we have talked to so many people that have now retired, but they had clocked their 120 payments and they are receiving full debt cancellation.
Well, looking at the clock, we've just got about 1 more minute left. Natalia, before we end today's workshop, do you want to take a second to just tell folks how they can get involved with the work we're doing to make sure as many people get relief as possible?
Sure. I just wanted to share with folks, especially, just a reminder. I know we probably are broken records at this point, but when in doubt, apply for public service loan forgiveness. You must apply, and if you only those who need to with that older loan type, do your consolidation before October 31st of this month. Then also apply for student debt cancellation. You can apply for both. They will not, cancel out each other or hurt you in any way. And then specifically for broad-based debt cancellation at Student Debt Crisis Center, we have launched our ambassador program. If you're somebody who joins our workshops a lot, or this is your first time, but you want to help spread the word, broad-based debt cancellation is much less complicated than public service loan forgiveness. So we are enlisting you to help us spread the word to as many people as possible. I believe Cody is sharing a link. If you'd like to sign up to be a Student Debt Crisis Center ambassador, we have our next meeting tomorrow evening at 8 p.m. Eastern. We already have almost 1,300 people that have signed up to help us spread the word, and just looking for more people, and always want to ask those that are joining our workshops, because you often tend to be, the most up-to-date and dedicated to this cause. So thank you again so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate you taking time out of your day to learn about this, and just make sure to submit your PSLF form and cancellation form as soon as possible.
Great. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight, and we'll speak with you soon.